Spring has sprung. Time to read books so I don't be dumb. What's up, friends? Letty here to share with you my spring TBR. Now, I am going to be reading more than 12 books over the season of spring because I usually read about 12 books in a month. But these are the books that gave me those springtime vibes. Now, they're not necessarily set during spring or even related to spring, or maybe other people wouldn't think they're related to spring, but I do, and you know, that's what really matters, right? Anyway, maybe this will give y'all some ideas on what to read this spring, and then next year around this time, I should have a pretty well-rounded springtime recommendations list for y'all. So first up, real quick, this isn't going to be on my TBR because I already read it, and if I would have thought about it sooner, I would have saved it for the end of the month. But it does really fit the spring theme, so this is like a little bonus book for you. A sneak peek at next year's springtime recommendations video, I guess, and this just fits the spring theme. And that is House of Hollow by Crystal Sutherland. This is a horror story, and this will be in my upcoming March wrap-up, so I will tell you more details then. But basically, it's about three weird sisters. There's some strange things going on, and we get labyrinth vibes, minotaur vibes from this, and pro tip, don't eat while you read this book because everything in this book smells absolutely disgusting. I'm going to group these 12 books. I have a couple fantasy, a couple sci-fi, I have a mystery adventure, I have a couple lit fics, a few classics, and some poetry. And the first fantasy book I have to talk about is Song of Silver, Flame Like Night by Emily Wen Zhou, or Zhao as it would be in English. And this is based on Chinese mythology. And this is so beautiful. The colors just made me think of spring, Easter, I guess. It has like a watercolor kind of look to it. This is based on Chinese mythology. There is a town that has been overtaken by colonizers and they have outlawed those people's magic. We follow a young girl who had her mother killed, and she has a strange mark that's been burned onto her arm that her mother did, but only she can see it. And she's trying to figure out what it means, and she thinks she may be a descendant from practitioners, and so she has to be really careful and secretive. And it's a lot of tension going on with trying to stay away from the people who have overtaken this land. And this sounds really good. I can't wait to read this in April. And then the second fantasy is going to be the sequel to that book, Dark Star Burning, Ash Falls White. And then again, the colors just make me think of springtime, Easter. I love the watercolor look to it. It's just so beautiful. I mean, look how those look together. Those are going to have to be facing out on my bookshelf. Oh, hey, Brent. What are you doing? You want to sit over here? Oh. This is little Fritzy, little Fritz Wiki. Let's see if he behaves himself. Mr. Fritz here, he has two modes. There's either sleeping or being a little terrorist. Anyway, so I am planning on reading both of these books in April. And the first sci-fi book I have to talk about is The Measure by Nikki Ehrlich, and this just looks like springtime to me with all the flowers and the bright yellow cover. And in this we have a string that is delivered to everybody, I think, in the world. And the length of the string is indicative of how long their life is going to be. So the shorter the string, the shorter the life, the longer the string, the longer the life. Some people don't open it, they don't want to know how short or long their life is. And some people react differently to what length their string is. And also society treats people differently depending on the length of their string. I mean, if you got something like that that would tell you if your life was going to be short or long, would you want to know? And if you knew, would that change how you lived your life? So it sounds like a lot of potential for drama and jealousy and tension, but very thought-provoking, so I'm excited to read it. And the next sci-fi book has a gothic fiction element, and that's our Hideous Progeny by C.E. McGill. This is one of the coolest covers I have ever seen, and this is influenced by Frankenstein. And in this we follow Mary, who is the great niece of Victor Frankenstein. She knows her great uncle disappeared under mysterious circumstances in the Arctic, but she doesn't know why or how. The 1850s are a time of discovery, and London is ablaze with the latest scientific theories and debates, especially when a spectacular new exhibition of dinosaur sculptures opens at the Crystal Palace. Mary is keen to make her name in this world of science alongside her geologist husband, but despite her sharp mind and sharper tongue, without wealth and connections, their options are limited. When Mary discovers some old family papers that allude to the shocking truth behind her great-uncle's past, She thinks she may have found the key to securing her and her husband's professional and financial future, and their quest takes them to the wilds of Scotland and to her husband's intriguing but reclusive sister, and to a deadly chase with a rival who is out to steal their secret. This is a tale of ambition and obsession, of forbidden love and sabotage. It's a twisty gothic adventure that may forever change your view of human nature. And I'm sure this will have a theme of who is the real monster, the monster, or the man who created the monster. And this next one is technically a mystery adventure, but it does have a lot of science in it, according to the synopsis. And that is State of Wonder by Anne Patchett. In a narrative replete with poison arrows, devouring snakes, scientific miracles, and spiritual transformations, State of Wonder presents a world of stunning surprise and danger, rich in emotional resonance and moral complexity. As Dr. Marina Singh embarks upon an uncertain odyssey into the insect-infested Amazon, she will be forced to surrender herself to the lush but forbidding world that awaits within the jungle. Charged with finding her former mentor, a researcher who has disappeared while working on a valuable new drug, she will have to confront her own memories of tragedy and sacrifice as she journeys into the unforgiving heart of darkness. It's stirring and luminous. It's a world unto itself, where unlikely beauty stands between unimaginable loss beneath the rainforest's jeweled canopy. That sounds really atmospheric, and I love anything set in nature, so this really just screams spring to me, and I've never read anything by this author, so I'm curious to check it out. And the first lit fic book on my spring TBR is All's Well by Mona Awad. I don't think this really has anything to do with spring, but to me, spring just gives me classic and literary vibes, and what's more classic than Shakespeare? And in this, we follow a theater professor who suffers from chronic pain, and she feels that putting on Shakespeare's most maligned play will help cure her. And I read Bunny in December, and I absolutely loved it, so I'm very excited to read more by this author. Miranda Fitch's life is a waking nightmare. The accident that ended her burgeoning acting career left her with excruciating chronic back pain, a failed marriage, and a deepening dependence on painkillers. Determined to put on Shakespeare's All's Well That Ends Well, she faces a mutinous cast hell-bent on staging Macbeth instead. And that's when she meets three strange benefactors who have an eerie knowledge of Miranda's past and a tantalizing promise for her future. One where the show goes on, her rebellious students get what's coming to them, and the invisible doubted pain that's kept her from the spotlight is made known. And as someone who suffers from chronic pain, I think I would be able to relate to this a lot. I have not read Macbeth or All's Well That Ends Well, but I do have Macbeth. Maybe I should get All's Well That Ends Well as well, and then read those in tandem with this. I really like doing that when I can. I like to do tandem reading. So yeah, maybe I'll do that, and hopefully I will love this just as much as Bunny. And the second lit fic book on my springtime TBR is Salt Houses by Hala Alyan, or Alyan. Sorry, I'm not sure how to pronounce that. She is Palestinian. I will look up how to pronounce her name for my wrap-up. But this is set in Palestine initially. On the eve of her daughter Aliyah's wedding, Selma reads the girl's future in a cup of coffee dregs. She sees an unsettled life for Aliyah and her children. She also sees travel and luck. While she chooses to keep her predictions to herself that day, they will all soon come to pass when the family is uprooted in the wake of the Six-Day War of 1967. Elegant and powerful, Salt Houses follows 3 generations of a Palestinian family as they scatter across the globe, and brings us to a greater understanding of how we carry our origins in our hearts wherever we may roam. Next up, I have 3 classics on my springtime TBR, and the first one is Great Expectations by the one and only Charles Dickens. So far, I've read A Christmas Carol. I would really love to read more of his work, and I've had this for a while, so might as well read it now. I don't know why, but this just makes me think of springtime now. You know, I'm not a huge romance reader, so hopefully this is more just like a love story, and it's one of those classics, you know, so maybe I can tolerate it. And also, these 2 people meet in a garden, so there you go. In the marshy mist of a village churchyard, a tiny orphan boy named Pip is suddenly terrified by a shivering, limping convict on the run. Years later, a supremely arrogant young Pip boards the coach to London, where, by the grace of a mysterious benefactor, he will join the ranks of the idle rich and become a gentleman. Finally, in the luminous mist of the village at evening, Pip the man meets Estella, his dazzlingly beautiful tormentor, in a ruined garden, and lays to rest all the heartaches and illusions that his great expectations have brought upon him. And I'm glad to have this edition because apparently Charles Dickens changed the ending of the book, and so this book has both endings. And the next classic on my list is technically going to be a reread, but I haven't read this since I was a child, but I remember absolutely loving this series. Now I only have the first book so far, but it's such a cute edition, so I'm really looking forward to reading this. I don't think it's set in spring necessarily, but the cover gives me spring vibes, and that's Anne of Green Gables by L.M. Montgomery. The cover is so cute. And in this we follow Anne Shirley, who is an 11-year-old orphan, and she mistakenly gets sent to go live with her siblings on a farm. And so this follows her life growing up as she makes friends and finds her place in the world. And the next classic on my spring TBR is another childhood favorite. I have always loved this story so much, and I have 3 editions of this book, but this is the one I'm going to be reading in spring because it gives me the most springtime vibes, and that is Alice in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll. And I mean, this is perfect for spring. You got the flowers, the mushroom, the little bunny rabbit there. And I'm sure we all know what this is about. It's one of my favorite tropes. A young girl who's in a different world other than her own. Things are nonsensical, and then she has to find her way back home. So I'm definitely looking forward to reading this again in the springtime. The first one I'm going to be reading this week, and it is called A River Dies of Thirst by Mahmoud Darwish, and he is a prevalent Palestinian author. And this cover also just gives me springtime vibes as well. I think there's about 150 different poems in here. I mean, some of them are pretty short, like some are just a few paragraphs like that. So what I'm planning on doing is I'm going to read a few books alongside this, and then after so many chapters, I'll read however many different poems, so that way I'm done with the poetry book at the same time I'm done with all the books. And I already glanced through this and read a few, and I love it so far, so I'm really looking forward to reading this. The next poetry book and the last book I have to talk about is Devotions by Mary Oliver. Oh, there we go. So this is a collection of all the different poems that she has specifically about nature all in one place. And as you can see, I have read a little bit of it. I am about right here. So hopefully I can be more diligent about reading this. Typically I like to read it on weekend mornings while I'm having my coffee and breakfast. So I'm definitely going to make more of an effort to read it this spring. So here are some of the books that I will be reading this spring. Let me know if you have read any of these, what you thought. Do you have any favorites on here? Have you now added any to your springtime TBR? And if you've made it this far and would like to let me know, go ahead and leave a springtime related emoji. So anything that you think is related to spring, a flower, a plant, a little bunny rabbit, something like that. And as always, thank you all so much for watching. I will see you in the next one.